In today's episode, we'll start by showing you how to go above and beyond in your branding, and we'll close things out with unique and powerful ways of getting yourself noticed by the right kind of people who want to do business with you. Don't you change that dial or drop that phone. We're about to level it up and shatter the mold. Question. In a world where groupthink is the norm, others want what you've earned, and thinking for yourself will get a target painted on your back, how do you flip the script and level up your business, your money, relationships, your health, your status, and your life? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Andrew S. Kaplan, and it's time to shatter the mold. Welcome to another episode of Shatter the Mold. Andrew S. Kaplan, really happy to be here with you. You can probably tell by now we're starting to pick up our schedule again and get more episodes in. After a bit of a layoff, which, that was a good reason, obviously, I was working on my YouTube channel in support of the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. There's been so much enthusiasm, which I'm so grateful for, regarding the book and the content, that I've been hard at work behind the scenes, just coming up with a lot of information and further content in support of that experience in that book. And those that haven't checked it out yet, you could obviously head on over to awesomemarvelous.com, and that'll auto forward to the YouTube channel. And of course, many of you already know you can also go to lastlawofattractionbook.com if you want to check out the Amazon listing for the book itself. And again, it's also available in audiobook, Audible, Amazon, Apple Books, whatever floats your boat. But with that said, I don't want to waste any time here. I want to dive straight into today's guest because we go into a lot of awesome content, and she is really on the ball. So let's just, get started here. Elizabeth Pampalone is a master networker and trusted business advisor with over 20 years of entrepreneurial experience. She's also a high-level speaker with a deep insight into the ins and outs of branding, among many other key business skills. Her firm, Beyond the Cause Inc., helps overwhelmed business owners and burned-out nonprofit directors achieve success and freedom through the power of what she calls absolute marketing. We'll definitely talk about what that really means, among other important topics. So let's waste no more time here. We're going to switch mics up. We're going to dive on in. And for those watching this in video format, because I am starting to put these out in video, quick apologies for my wacky Zoom background. This was me in experimentation mode because I was testing different backgrounds for the YouTube channel. But as you can see, Elizabeth was more than patient, and she had her act together on her normal background. And again, this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful interview. So you want to sit tight for this one. You want to take notes and just get ready. Let's switch it up and let's dive on in. Elizabeth Pampalone, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Shatter the Mold.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. And I briefly heard a portion of a presentation that you were doing earlier this month. And obviously it's been such a blurry year. It might as well have been 5 months ago, right? It's been so much stuff going on, but it really did, stand out to me. And I'm like, wow, she's really dialed in with her marketing. She's really dialed in with branding. She's dialed in with so many of these things. And that's one of the reasons why I was really excited to chat with you here. And I guess to start things off, I understand you have a thing that you call absolute marketing, correct?
Yes.
All right, can you tell me a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so it's a system that I developed for myself when I was wearing many hats and running many businesses. And it was a way for me to create all of my marketing for a year in just a few days. So now I work with my clients, small businesses and nonprofits, and we essentially create a year plus worth of marketing content and everything, all the technical stuff, all the content in just 5 days. And we basically focus on the pillars of what I call the pillars of marketing, which there are 5 of them: branding, website, social media, email marketing, and blogging. And I believe that those are really, really important things that you need instead of, I know a lot of people just rely on social media, and that's one part of marketing. It's not all of marketing. So I try to show that those 5 pillars are all important.
I'm curious how, you put this down, you have everything, I guess, on paper, you have a really strong skeleton. How long does it generally take people to implement based on that once that's down on paper for them?
We actually do the implementation each day.
Okay.
So
Well,
we build an entire brand in one day. We build an entire website in one day. We create and write and schedule all of the graphics and all of the text for 12 months of social media posts, which is one post a day for 365 days. So we're doing all the implementation all together.
You're moving fast. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
a website in one day,
Yeah.
that could be a quite a task depending on what's going on with it. That's amazing. And as I understand it, you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, you generally deal with nonprofits and small businesses, which I imagine this thing in particular, I mean, this is useful for everybody, but a lot of times those types of businesses, they almost come from a place, whether it's accurate or not, of like not having as many resources. So
Yeah.
this just gives them this boost of momentum that's like rocket fire and they're off to the races.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've found a lot of people will come to me with existing businesses or existing nonprofits, and we're talking 5 to 10 years long. You know, if they've been in business, they've been around for that long. And they'll come to me and they'll say, well, I'm just this little company. And they just kind of have this mom and pop feel to them. And
Hmm.
then when we actually rebrand them or we fix their brand, sometimes it just needs a little fixing, or we build them a website or we do any of these pieces, really any of them, or all of them together, they leave and they feel like I'm a business now, like I'm a big player. I have something to say, I have something to sell, something to offer, and they don't have that mentality of I'm this small player, I'm a little fish in this big pond. They have this, I'm kind of a medium fish in a probably medium sized pond.
Hmm.
And they have this sense of like growth because no, they haven't really put that value on themselves before, and now we're able to show them that value just by basically taking everything out of all of the corners of the business and really just laying it all out and really segmenting each piece and saying, this is your brand, this is your website, and then giving them direction on things that they may not be as comfortable with, like social media, email marketing, things like that.
Right. And I think even for people that understand the value of mindset, I think sometimes just because, we go through our daily grind, it's kind of easy to overlook how
Yeah,
powerful and important that shift to being even just a medium fish in a medium pond, how significant that is because it's kind of self-fueling. All of a sudden they're making a bigger impact and getting bigger feedback from other people, which is boosting them more. And it's kind of like an ever growing situation that started off because they had that initial boost.
absolutely. And it also allows them this newfound courage to go after bigger fish that they've been, well, I could never go to that company or ask that person for a donation. I'm not there yet. You know, they have this
Hmm.
mentality of I'm not there yet. And this really gives them that, no, like I have a logo, I have a website, my marketing is on point. Like I am ready to now push all that aside and not worry about that for essentially a year and
Hmm.
say, I'm going to focus on actually going and getting the clients that I want and being proud of saying, this is my business card, or here's my website. I'm going to send you an email. This is my logo and my signature. You know, those things just give you this boost of confidence that I feel like all entrepreneurs need. And a lot of us are sadly lacking in because we do sit, kind of in our little holes and we work on our marketing all day. And then we forget that we actually have a lot of stuff that we can do and that we're really good at. we just
Right.
we get bogged down in some of those, minor tasks that we make much bigger than they should be.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I know, we don't have a full day to focus on one of these things, but I do want to get into the branding bit because I think a lot of people come from a misunderstanding of what that really means.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before we dive into your process, which I'm really fascinated for, I'm curious, based on your experience, what's like one of the biggest misconceptions people have or biggest mistakes people make regarding branding?
They will get something done cheap and then they'll say, well, I like it.
Mm,
And that's a huge mistake because I honestly believe that most entrepreneurs should be sick of their website. They should be sick of their brand, they should be sick of their website, because you're going to look at it every single day, but your client is not. Your ideal customer is not. And they need to have it be something that they are familiar with, that appeals to them, that gives them comfort, that gives them this whatever sense of feeling you want them to have when they see your website, when they see your logo, when they experience your brand in any form. Then we want them to feel that. We don't need to feel that. It's not for us, it's for the person we're trying to reach. And sometimes people will say, well, I like the orange logo that I have, but they are maybe somebody who needs a blue logo because that inspires trust and loyalty, rather
hmm.
than something orange that's like about energy and power and being loud and kind of boisterous in a way. And those things have colors have emotions attached to them. And when we see these things, we think of, emotions, or we have emotions that we feel when we see certain things. So even fonts can do that. There's a psychology to picking a font for your logo. And, there's also things that people try and do where they say, well, I had this photograph of, a gator, and I want to put that gator photograph. It's a great photo. That's my logo. It's like, well, no, that's not your logo, because now if I try to turn that black and white, if I try to turn that a solid blue color, a solid red color, I don't know, whatever the color is I want to choose, I can't do that. Now it's a photograph. It's just going to be a blob. It's not going to look like anything. So then they also make that mistake of trying to pick something again that they like, and they infuse that into what they're trying to do and say, well, that's good enough. Well, I've seen other people with picture logos, and it's not what their client will need to see from them that says that person's legit. I want to give them my money.
So let's talk, I guess, a little bit about like, what is the process you will put someone through to get around these types of things? Like, for people listening right now, like, what's the first step? Like, how do they even begin to approach that, knowing now that they're looking at it through rose-colored glasses that may not be as accurate as they really think they want them to be?
The first thing that I do when I sit down with someone, before, like when we're doing the contract and the invoice and all that stuff, I tell them, don't prepare anything. That's the first thing. What do I need to bring? What do I need to prepare? And I'm like, nothing. Don't do anything, because I want them to come in with no stress, with not worrying about it. And usually they come in super stressed because they're like, I don't understand, because they're not sure of the process yet. And I come in with fresh eyes. I don't research them ahead of time. I don't look up stuff to prep for their meeting. And I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but I don't do any of that stuff, because I believe that when I come and look at something like that and they're bringing me something brand new that I've never seen before, I want to be fresh. I want to be like a consumer looking at it going, if I'm in the market for this, is this what I want? Is this what I'm going to be drawn to? And I'm looking at it from a marketer's perspective and saying, is this something that is going to work on your website, on your business card, on your Facebook accounts, on your Instagram account, like all of the things? I'm looking at it from all those angles. And I've had people come in and they sit down, and I had one guy, this is my favorite story. He came in and he had 73. I said, you can bring whatever you want, but don't worry about it. If you bring nothing, that's fine. He brought in 73 different versions of his logo that had been done.
Wow.
And he had them all numbered. I mean, he knew the evolution. And I just flipped through this book, and they were all printed in color. One logo, tiny logo on the center of this 8.5 by 11 page. And I'm just looking through this book, and I'm just looking at every iteration from the beginning all the way until the most recent. It took on shapes and forms and different color. I mean, but the thing that remained the same was he wanted it. It was an Italian company. He wanted it to be about Italian food, and it was his heritage. So he wanted that red, green, and white. He wanted black to be in there, and then he wanted this horse. Like this horse image was like really important to him. And it was already an icon, so it wasn't like we had to really, pry him away from a photograph or anything. But I was like, okay, well, there's something wrong here. There's all these versions, and you hate all of them. What's going on? And we're talking it through, and I said, well, what if we tried this? And we're trying to like mix 2 or 3 together. And I'm like, I like this, but we could change that. And we're going through all this stuff. It's about 2 to 3 hours into our 8-hour day, and it's right before lunch. And he says to me, I can't do this. I've been through all this, and this isn't working. And I said, okay, let's stop. And I want you to tell me, when you first started this company, what you were doing, what you were thinking. Why are you doing all this? And I usually start with that, but at this point he had so many versions. I was like, okay, we got to salvage some of his money here.
Yeah. He had so much baggage he was bringing into it also.
Right. And I wasn't looking at it that way. I was looking at it like, okay, we got to fix it. And so I just sat back and I said, okay, we're going to not look at this. Tell me what your reason is. Why'd you do all this? And he said, well, I was actually originally inspired by this company. And he pulled up this website, and I was like, this is it. This is what we have to do. And I'm not going to copy another company or anything like that, but it was the essence and where he had come from, that idea. And he had told someone, this is what I want. Like, this is where I'm going. Nobody did that because nobody wanted to copy, obviously, but they didn't know how to take the idea as an essence of an idea and make it his own version of that. And
Mm.
they just kind of went left field because they didn't want to copy it. And so all these iterations were so far from what he had originally, thought he wanted. So I looked at it and I said, we can do this. And so we took it and we mixed it together with his horse and his colors. And we came out with something that was incredible. It was so perfect. And he just sat there while I was building it. I did it. I do a lot of my brand stuff in Canva first because it's
Hmm.
just easy to move everything around. And I just built it in Canva really quickly. It took me maybe 10 minutes.
Nice.
And he just looked at it and he goes, that is what I have wanted this whole time. And he had spent like almost a year getting all the 73 iterations. And so that process of going back to the root for people and not just saying, okay, why do you like these images or why do you like these things, these colors? It was going back to what was the original intent and getting people to connect with their own emotion about the company and their own emotion about what they're doing, and helping them to see that this logo and this imagery that we're using is just a visual representation of that emotion, that they
Mm.
don't have to be tied to it in that way that it's like, well, I like those leaves, I want those leaves on there. It's
Right,
more
right.
about the emotion that they're attaching to those leaves. And if those leaves aren't part of that emotion, it was just something they saw and they liked, then they can now separate themselves from that and actually view it more objectively, but also still instill in that what they actually were feeling originally when they decided to do all this in the first place.
Right. So this is the first I'm hearing about, absolute marketing, and I'm hearing about this piece of the process. But what I'm getting out of listening to this and the fact that we're starting off with branding is I'm starting to operate on the assumption that there's a strategy here, an efficiency, where by getting to this point of the essence and what are you going for and the feeling and the emotion and the vibe and the intent, because you get the branding on point, all of a sudden everything else becomes easier to lift. The website, the blogging, the social media, because now it's off of this foundation. Am I on point with what you're trying to do with it?
Absolutely. And that is totally the part that people miss. They'll whip up a logo, they'll pick a few colors. Yeah, that's a good font. And then they go to do the website. The font's not available on the website. Their colors aren't matching. They don't really like the logo now. They're tired of it because they've looked at it like 50 million times and they've had to upload it in 10 different million versions,
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, the website kind of sucks because it's not what I envisioned because I don't have the skill to just do what I envisioned. The template's not working. And then they go to, email marketing, they even social media, and they're like, well, I was going to make all these templates for my social media, but I have to make 365 images. Well, forget that. I don't have time for that. And so
Right.
it just snowballs out of control. And then they end up spending, if they're working, and sometimes people are working full time and doing stuff like this. Or if not, they have kids and they're doing other things. It's like they spend every night, every weekend focused on this. And then they sit there and go, why am I not getting clients? And it's because no one is connecting with what they're doing, because the way they're presenting it, they're not connecting with it either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely true that we have to find that foundation first and then build all of these other pieces right on top of that. But we have to start with branding. And sometimes
Right.
I even force them to do the branding, even though they think they might not need it.
Right. Well, because I mean, it's kind of like the keys to the castle,
Yeah.
and I mean, I imagine there's still going to be compromise, but
Yeah.
if you've got the branding on point, you're being strategic with your compromises. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if you're gonna throw away a template because there's code in there that's botching the whole process, well, at least you know what you're still trying to achieve. So when you plug another template in there, you still have the consistency and you are on brand, and you're not losing the client through that sales funnel that you're working them through.
Absolutely. And I've actually sat with people before, and I've had people that have come to decisions within 10 minutes of being in the room. I mean, they're like, boom, I love it. That's what I wanted all along. You nailed it. All right, moving on. What are we doing next? And then
Hmm.
I've had people who've sat there. I mean, we do an 8-hour day, so it's like a 9 to 5 type of situation. And we sit together the whole 8 hours. I mean, it's in person, it's one-on-one, it's focused. And I've had people sit there till 3 p.m. I mean, like literally the final hours, and
Hmm.
they still haven't come to a decision. And I have done my best, worked my hardest to try and make it, happen for them. But they're either holding on to something, they're not telling me everything. There's some kind of communication breakdown where they're just sitting there and they just can't figure it out. And then we have some kind of breakthrough, some kind of, I don't know, they just get some kind of mental capacity where they're just like, oh, I get it now. And then it's like, boom, and done. So I've had people run the gamut of immediately knowing just, okay, well, what else are we doing today? That was easy. And then other people just laboring over it. And it's all different personality types come into that. And, how you deal with stress comes into that as well. I've had people just walk out of the room and say, I need a walk. And they just leave. They come back. And so it's just really interesting to see how people deal with it. But I do know that when I sit down with somebody, there's only been a few times where they've had an idea and I've like, no. Usually when they have an idea, I'm like, that's a good idea. What if we added, and we're kind of collaborating. That's why we do it together. But then there's times where people are like, can't you just do what I want? And I've said to them, I can certainly, this is, we're down to the final hours. I can certainly just do what you say. And you want these colors and these fonts and this image and that's it. But you paid me because I know what I'm doing. You paid me because I'm an expert. And if you want to pay me to be an order taker, you could have done that on Fiverr and you could have done it. It would have been the same, but you're paying me because I know what I'm doing. And because I have a reputation for doing this quickly and really well and nailing it for people that are just like, I don't even know what I want. Oh, wait, that's what I wanted. How did you know? So and I tell them, you can pay me for either one. And I've had only one person just say, just do it this way. And they paid me I feel like extra in a way, because they just were like, just take my order. But then most people realize that that's not what they're there for.
It's kind of funny because when they do that, they're in many ways, obviously they're not getting their money's worth in the sense that they're not really taking advantage of your expertise.
Right.
But I could see how people would still feel good because like, well, I'm not getting like these extra pieces, but I am getting someone who's so talented that could still make it perfect on Canva, even if she doesn't agree with it. So I'm sure they're not getting, in your opinion, your best, but they're still getting a lot of bang for their buck. Where Fiverr, they might get someone that's incompetent or someone that's slow to respond. So I mean, I totally see why it's way more valuable if they're just going to pay attention because they hired you anyway. But I kind of feel like even like a half-assed version, they're still getting a lot of important pieces with someone that's kind of been through the ringer. And
I'm just like one of those people, like I like to over deliver. And so when that happens, like I said, it's only happened like one time and I was like, oh man,
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. It's like, you got to go through that also, like just as a service provider where like it's law of averages. You're eventually going to run into the person where there's two people in the room and they just can't agree with each other. And like, they both love what you're doing, but they love different things that you're doing. And it's like, okay, how do I deal with this landmine now? So it's like, it's always something cool. So just, and I know there's so much more to go into branding, but I'm curious, remind me, like from branding, where do you take that into in the process after that?
So once we create the logo, the branding day has a lot of pieces to it. So the logo is just one piece. I feel like it's just your visual representation. Obviously, it's your foundation. And then if people need like a business card, we'll design that for them right there. And if they need, collateral pieces, maybe they need a rack card, depending on the business, maybe they need a one sheet, like a speaker one sheet, we'll design that for them right there. And we'll design it. And I design a lot of the stuff in Canva. The logo, I just do that for mock-up purposes, but I design the other pieces in Canva so then I can transfer it to them and they just have it. They can edit it. They can change it. It's theirs and they own it after that. So then once we're done with those pieces, and if they don't need anything like that, we actually create an ebook. And I tell people that when we do a branding day, we write an ebook and they all just jaws drop like, oh my gosh, how's that possible? And it's usually about 10 or so pages. And still that sounds like an enormous task. But when you break down an ebook, it's essentially like 2 to 3 blog posts worth of content. And I believe that anybody can write a blog post in 10 minutes. So and I've gotten that efficiency down for my blogging day. So when we sit down together, I talk to them about what kind of content they want to do, what kind of freebie they want to offer. Sometimes it's a checklist. Sometimes it's a, recipe book. My food guy, my Italian food guy, he created a recipe book and we ended up putting stuff in there about the history of tomato sauce and different tomatoes that he uses, and we did images of them. They were gorgeous, and we wrote little, these are sweet and these are savory and these are a little tangy, and all that different stuff about tomatoes. So it was really an interesting ebook to create, and it created a ton of pages. I mean, we had 3 recipes, we had a bunch of stuff about the tomatoes, we had the history of tomato sauce, we had a cover, we had a bio section. I mean, we had about 12 pages right there, just boom, done.
Wow.
And a little bit of research, maybe took us maybe 2-3 hours to complete the whole thing. But he had this gorgeous ebook that he now gives away on his website in exchange for email addresses. And we've done the same thing for our daddle sauce guys. They take daddle peppers and make like a hot spicy sauce. And they have recipe book as well. And we've done checklists and, like I said, one sheets for my nonprofits. I do donor one sheets, which is like fact sheets about who they're helping, how many people they've helped, how many people are in that situation and why they're helping them. And, those kind of sheets where it's like, wow, these are the statistics and this is how far my money goes and that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it's really interesting. But I like doing the ebooks and some kind of collateral sheet that helps them to promote their site and their business, beyond just the logo.
See, I hear all sorts of things when you talk about this, and I see like a brilliant psychology in there where they're sitting down with somebody, and for them, an ebook isn't even like in less than a day, isn't even a thought in their mind of a possibility.
Yeah.
But there's a power of someone that's not so emotionally connected to the business where there's a feeling of lack, to watch them just like, no, we're doing it. And then to see it unfold, because I think it then empowers them to a level like, oh my God, I can repeat this process, which,
Yes.
It sounds like my audience, like I'm selling them on you, but I think that it's important to mention. I think that's important because that bleeds into all the other things that you're doing, because you're setting things up over a couple of days and then they still have to implement and execute. So I don't know if this was your intent, but it sounds to me like doing an ebook or doing a task or giving them an asset that's in addition to their logo in that first day is fueling a specific fire and showing them a certain way that they could latch onto and take with them through the rest of the year.
It's absolutely true. And the reason we do the 12 months of social media in a day, which is my most popular, but usually it requires branding and website before we get to that point. But it's the most popular and it grabs people the most because people think that you have to sit down every day or every week or even once a month and do your social media. And then it's like, oh, well, what do I post today? Or, oh, I forgot to do that. And I've had business owners tell me that they would lay awake at night and go, crap, I forgot to post on social media because they were doing 50 million other things. And that kind of thing, when we sit down and we create 12 months of posts, 365 posts, we schedule them and we put them on every platform they want to be on or that they should be on. And we create the graphics that go with them. We had one client that wanted to be on Instagram, and that needs an image every time. Yep. And we were just going to do once a day. But this is a foundational layer too. And I tell people, we've created 365 posts today. And they're like, well, what if something happens that I don't know is going to happen later on? So post it. Like, then you'll feel empowered, inspired to post something that you would have before, if you had to do all the posting all the time, you might have just gotten bogged down and never posted anything. But now you just, I just have to post this one thing. Not, I have to think of a week of posts or I have to think of a month of posts because they're already done. And a lot of businesses will get so busy and or they'll have something happen and they can't do these posts and they'll be gone for 3-6 months. And you'll go to their page and you'll be like, are they still in business? Are they even open? And right. This just eliminates all of that. It eliminates stress for them. But for them to sit down and go, we created all that, or do 12 months of blogging in a day. That's another one. People sit down and they're like, I can't believe I wrote all that, because they have to write it. I don't write it.
Right.
And I make them do that. And I help them to see that these processes, what we've been told have to be these long drawn out processes by the gurus. They're not that long and drawn out if you know how to sit down and focus on it. And that, like you said, empowering them to move forward and do it again themselves. That's my whole mission, because a lot of my clients don't come back. And that's okay. They might stick with me for maintenance, or we might have ongoing relationships in other ways, but they don't come back to me again for, a website or social media until maybe 2 or 3 years later, because they know that they've been taught, and they sat there with me the whole day and they were like, this isn't that hard. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah. That was the whole point. That was the whole
exactly.
point. That's awesome. So real quick, I was just curious, you mentioned mapping things out, you mentioned blogging, you mentioned social media. Do you have clients where a YouTube channel is part of the plan and you map out YouTube videos with them?
Yes. Now, those we can't implement in a day.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have implemented podcasting in a day. This is something I do
Mm.
rarely. Only certain people can do it. I feel like it's a gift. And so when I see that gift in someone, then I will encourage them. And I've actually created, we've done between 6 to 12 sessions or 6 to 12 podcasts in one day. Now they're not, long, they're not interview based, but if they want to do that in the future, this at least gives them that edge to kind of say, oh, I can do this. We record them on their phone. We put them through a little bit of editing, or we'll send them to Fiverr. There's actually editors on Fiverr that are really good, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
just send it back and then it's done and we put it on the site. So, I try to encourage that, but like when it comes to YouTube, I think that's awesome, but that's something we can't necessarily do in a day. And that's all I do anymore. I don't do any like long-term things like that. But I think YouTube, podcasting, membership sites, we do those in a day as well. But like the long-term aspect of those pieces are what I would say are like that second tier. Once you get down those 5 days and you've got all that stuff kind of running and going, then it's time to look back and say, okay, can we add video? Can we add podcasting? Can we add membership? So for someone who's kind of gotten all those things down, that's your next phase. And that's where you really see that growth of expertise as far as saying, I am the expert. I have a podcast. I have a membership. I have, videos on YouTube. So I think that's really, really great for people who are in that middle growth phase where they're kind of going to that second level.
Awesome. Awesome. It's funny because like I know this, but I'm learning so much because sometimes you need to hear it in a certain way of like, oh yeah, I mean, I understood that piece, but I never put these two pieces together. So thank you so much for what you're giving me here so far. Um, are you up for a little unpredictable curveball?
Sure. What's
Cool.
that?
So full disclosure for my audience, they're going to hear this part if this makes it in. If you're not happy with this or I'm not happy with what we're about to discuss, I'm just going to cut it out of the interview. So people are hearing right now that I am totally prepping that this might not make it, but this is the first time I'm speaking to someone who's so much on branding. And also I was really intrigued by the fact that you identify emotions and colors and you understand the psychology behind that.
Yeah.
And I would never want to ask you for branding work without paying you, but I'm gonna give it a chance if this works out for us. We're just gonna kind of like have you show your stuff. I want to put my latest book cover in front of you, and
Okay.
I just want you to assess it. And by the way, because again, I don't like this, I can always cut it. Don't be scared about hurting my feelings. But I think this is really intriguing. Again, it's my first time to talk to someone who understands colors and understands psychology. And I had a specific game plan, which I may or may not mention as we go through this. But I'm curious. I want to put it in front of you and just see what you, as a branding person, get when you look at it. And I'm assuming you're in front of your computer right now.
Yes. Well, I'm going to preface this with
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I do website audits.
Okay.
And I do them, the first one I do for someone, sometimes I do them for free, sometimes they're paid. But when I do a website audit, I preface it by saying, I am the Gordon Ramsay of websites.
Nice.
I
Oh, I
don't
might
want
I
to
might
make
get. So I'm going to make this really good because I'm going to send you to an Amazon link, so you won't be able to tear up the website because you won't see how bad it is. So I'll send you to. So it's the pure cover, so it won't even
All
be
right.
like a website where like, dude, we got to talk. So I think you're in Canada,
No,
or
I'm
you're.
in Florida.
Oh,
Ohio.
you're in
I'm in
Florida.
Florida. Yeah,
Cool.
in the
I
US.
think it's because a connection we had was in Canada, so I kind of assumed you were there. So cool. So if you just go to lawofattractionbook.com, it'll automate you over to the book listing on Amazon. And I'm just curious, someone who understands colors and someone who understands branding, like what pops for you as you see this?
Okay, let's see here. Okay. Um, there's a lot of color going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously the words are the full, like they're filling the entire cover. They're the whole, they cover everything. Um, I think the typography is off.
Mm-hmm.
So I would change the typography. It's a little like some of it's aligned, some of it's not. I like that there's bigger and smaller, but then each bigger and smaller is a different color. So that's like overwhelming me as a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I don't know what the background, like the stars. almost like the universe is behind the black plaque.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would actually kind of like to see more of that. I'm a little bit intrigued by the background rather than the colors in front of me. I'm not a fan of the red border. It's harsh. It seems harsh to me, almost like almost evil in a way.
That's
and
exactly what I'm going for in this book, right?
and so that's just what I'm seeing initially. But like a lot of color is going on. I'd like to see more of a branded look where I see like 2 to 3 colors max. And if there's like a photograph as the background or, you know, something like that, that's fine. But I
Mm-hmm.
think some of the most intriguing and intense book covers that I've seen are actually by Seth Godin. He chooses 2 to 3 colors, and sometimes he'll put a photograph on it, but it's just so stark and like it just you just like, well, I need this book. What is this about? You know, and so that's kind of what I use as far as book covers go as a baseline, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the ones that just have words on them sometimes can be boring, but this is not boring. It's just too much going on, I think. That's my
Right.
opinion. So
Cool.
what do you think?
Did not hurt my feelings. So, by the way, do you want to keep this in if we keep going?
Yeah, sure,
All right,
sure.
cool. So, and we'll see if I can take it now. Keep it in. No, so actually, this is a good opportunity because I don't think I've ever explained this for my audience, and I'll say to you while I'm doing. Let me explain my psychology behind the book cover, and I
Okay.
get the typography thing, by the way. So, what I was going for is I started, you know how we start with the foundation? Now, I'm not going to tell you whether my foundation is sound or not, but it certainly is a foundation strategy where
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming from the foundation that there will become many times where this is a suggested book or a sponsored book option on another page where the cover is really small. And
Yeah.
in recognition of the fact that I put in a long title because the title is so important, I knew it was basically going to be just a bunch of words.
Right.
And it was almost like I had to make that sacrifice of like, yeah, the thing that you're intrigued with the background, it was almost supposed to be this subtle subconscious thing of there's almost like a longing to find more. But I was really going for the you ever walk by a bar and they talk about like happy hour specials and stuff? It's like that kind of chalkboard with the different colors and the different beer options and the different
Right.
things, while simultaneously also coming like accessing the mind of a person when they're a kid. And obviously they didn't deal with all the different colors of chalk, but just from a learning process, like, oh, here's a chalkboard. So again, I'm not sure if that switches your opinion, but I figured you'd find that intriguing of my strategy and psychology behind why I made some of those things. And even like the different colors, it's like you notice law of attraction's all the same color. It's like I think that people are going to glance past something, and this is not only going to be in a sea of things, it's going to be in a sea of other self-improvement or law of attraction books. And I
Right.
want their eye to like boom shoot like the green. Notice it's green, like green means go. That's why I specifically made sure like law of attraction was that, and those types of things. So by the way, like the feedback didn't hurt my feelings, and I totally get what you mean. It's like, oh my god, that's a lot. Part of it, whether I'm right or wrong, was intentional, and it all came from that understanding of like this is going to be like a really small image at times
Yeah.
that's got like the most of my customers are either going to be word of mouth or people that glance because they're looking at another page on Amazon where their brain is already in buying and curiosity mode.
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said for that. I think the way that I would change it to go more the direction you were thinking, based on what I've seen and kind of my initial thoughts, and then also your explanation of your actual like direction,
Mm-hmm.
is that small image is going to be super important. And I was actually just scrolling down the page on Amazon to see it what else, like you were saying, like, oh, those sponsored ones that are like right below it or whatever. And I'm looking at them, and the ones that are catching my eye the most are red writing on a white background with some smaller imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least half the book is color, but half the book is like white background with the writing. And the images, like the sky background or like the space background that you have, with very heavy white writing on it.
Mm.
And that is what's standing out to me the most, because I actually see another one that's down here called Advanced Manifesting, Mastering the Law of Attraction with Frequency Attunement. And that book almost looks identical to yours, but they don't have the chalkboard piece that you have.
Mm.
But it's different colors and it has some similar aspects to it, but it's lost. I didn't really notice it, except I was like focusing and looking for this space background. So like, it's very interesting. The ones that are standing out to me are the most clean and the most clear. And yours, as well, it is clean and clear. I feel like it needs just a tweak to get you that chalkboard feel. And I even think if you used a chalkboard, that green chalkboard background, and you actually did take a photograph of that written in chalk and then had your subtitle in actual like printed text, I think that would be really cool because, you know, and having the words like the last at the top and then law of attraction in chalk written like in a photograph, and then book you'll ever need to read and like printed below the law of attraction. I think that would be really cool because that gives you that feel of this is a chalkboard, this is a classroom. I need to be able to see the chalk because then I feel like I'm learning that, you know? So anyway, that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to sucker consulting out of you, but I definitely appreciated that. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I think for everyone listening, it's really great just because now they've heard 2 approaches that are coming from a different place. And I don't even necessarily disagree with you, but I think that's cool. And people now they'll go and they'll pop on that other book that you mentioned. They're like, oh, let's see what's going on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that. And that was nice, even like a little sampling, because I imagine this is basically part of like what these conversations go like with clients, right? Where, you know, whether you want to hear it or not, they're going to tell you their perspective, which I'm sure is valuable because then that helps you not only when you're building something that's going to be in resonance with what they're talking about, but you also know you can anticipate like, okay, based on what this person's saying, even though I have like 5 really good ideas, they're going to shoot these down. So let me go to this one that's more in line with what they're doing because we can't waste time. I'm assuming that kind of helps you, right? And
and like when I was mentioning all the, like when I was telling you like what I was seeing in the book, I immediately started reworking it in my head. But then when we started talking, you were giving me more feedback, more insight into what was there and why you did what you did. And then I was able to shift what I was thinking and based on some other examples, give you the idea of taking a photograph of a real chalkboard with part of the words on it and stuff like that, because that is going to be more in line with what you were thinking. And I actually think that's a good idea. So, you know, I don't go into a room with people or into a consulting situation and say, I know all the answers, you know, I'm going to make it my way. And if people think that I do that, and I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Because I do listen to what the other person has to input, because sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, but we just need to execute it differently.
Yeah, I imagine you have a mix. You probably have a mix of people that are too much control freaks, and some people that literally they're so lost in the weeds, they almost want you to do everything. And there's almost thing in the back of their mind, like, I just hope she gives me something good because I can't even look at it anymore. Like, I'm sure you get the whole spectrum, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So just curious, because again, like yours is obviously very hands-on situation, and even as evidenced by the conversation we just had here, you get a lot of peeks into the mindset and psychology of entrepreneurs across the board. What do you identify as like the number one obstacle to what they're doing, especially in the context of a process you put them through where you're putting things down on paper and they're going to have to implement it for a year? Like, what's the number one thing that they use to either stop themselves, or the number one obstacle that they don't even see in front of them?
Well, if they actually do the full 5 days, or at least, you know, most of those days with me, everything is implemented, which is the good part. They literally don't have to touch it. We've written, we've created, we've scheduled. It's in. You wouldn't have to look at your social media for a year if you didn't want to. Wow. I wouldn't recommend that, but
you wouldn't check out the comments, make sure you're on point.
Exactly. So that's already done. So that when they come to me and they get all that done, they're just like, oh my gosh, it's done. I don't have to think about that. Now the obstacle becomes, what do I have to do then? And the biggest fear is, I'm not going to get enough clients. You know, I need to go get more clients. We're not getting more clients. And if you ask entrepreneurs, like in different groups and stuff, I've seen the question posed, what do you need right now? And the answer is always more clients. And that's not really our answer. I think the biggest obstacle is, instead of saying, how do I sell more tickets? How do I get more clients? How do I do more this, more that? Is to say, what are we actually doing to get that? Not just sitting here saying, I need more clients, but what am I actually going to do to make that happen? And for me personally, I teach classes. I go on podcasts. I'm in a bunch of podcast groups right now, and I probably do two to three a week.
Wow.
And I just keep applying. I might apply for 20 in a week, and then I might be booked out for 2 to 3 a week for the next several months. Because the more I share what I can do, the more that I share what I know, Yeah, I don't care if you take it and you run with it. That's great. Then you're that kind of person. You're the DIYer. You're going to listen to me, hear a few pointers, and go, wow, that's great. That's great. Awesome. I'm moving with that. And then you're gone. But that's fine. But then there are going to be people that go, I still don't get it, or I still need help, or I wish someone would just do that for me. Why didn't I know about this before? And they're the ones that are going to come to me and say, I need help. And that's who I'm looking for, is those people who want that help, that hand holding in a way, because I love hand holding. But like the people that need that. There are some people that don't, there's some people that are just like, they hear it and they're like, I can do that. And so I'm out there pushing myself out there to teach classes. And I teach a lot of classes that I get paid for, and I teach a lot of classes for free. And I do the podcast obviously for free. And I'm not afraid to share what I know and what I do in sessions, because like I said, there's always going to be people that want that interaction, that one-on-one. They want their situation, me to actually review their situation. And then there's going to be people that are just like, hey, that example that Andrew had, like, it's perfect. I don't need to do anything further. I get it. I can do it now. And that'll work for them. So I think that I need more clients thing. It's like, what are we actually doing for that? Yeah. Social media is great. Yeah. Blogging's great. That's more passive. That's more about awareness. Everything we do in marketing in those 5 days, this is your awareness package. It's not going to necessarily bring you, someone in the door that's going to say, here's my $5,000, do this thing for me. They're going to see you on social media. They're going to see your email go out. They're going to see your blog post. It's going to take 7 to 12 of those before that person says, here's my money, take it. So that's your awareness package. What you actually do is go to networking events, show up to Zoom events, host events if you have to, create meetup groups, even if they're virtual, do things like Meetaway, which is crazy networking. I mean, it's like the craziest thing I've ever done. Do things like teach classes, find organizations that need your help, and maybe you can work with them on a pro bono basis, because all of their members are your perfect ideal client, not just for free because you want to, because nobody should be working for free. But if that's going to make that work and make that happen, joining professional organizations, yeah, it might be a little bit outlay of money, but that's where those people are that you need to find. So, those kind of things are the doing part. And I feel like when we get bogged down with all the marketing and the awareness stuff, which is those 5 days that I mentioned, the brand, website, social media, blogging, and email marketing, when we bog ourselves down with that, we don't have time for those doing things, the things that are going to make us money, the things that are actually going to help people to see that we are the experts. So, I try to use these 5 days to free them up for a year and say, now go do all that stuff that you think, well, I should have been going to networking. I should have been writing that book. I should have been whatever it was, right? That's going to actually make you money in the long run.
I think that's wonderful advice. It's just about putting yourself out there and giving value, because, like, if I'm understanding right, like, what you're doing with them over those couple of days is you're kind of like laying out this perfect foundation so that when they put themselves out there and it's time to find out more about them, there's this legitimacy that's just like stuck in place, and is a branding idea and a branding presence that they carry through with them when they're giving that value. And you mentioned that it was like a restaurant or a pizzeria or whatever, and it's like, people are thinking like, oh, well, that's easy when you have something to teach like marketing, but what do I do there? And I'm thinking, as you're describing, like, that person, if he was looking to do it, he could do like a food drive where he's giving away his food. And by the way, when you're doing a drive, you're talking about charity, you're talking about bigwigs, all of a sudden they're trying your gourmet pizza and they're like, wow, when next time I host my party, this is the person that I'm going to go to. So there's ways of doing it and doing good at the same time and offering value.
There's always partnerships that can be had, and by the most unlikely of partners too. I've had, partnerships with people who, I'm in marketing and I know someone who's a CPA and they only work with nonprofits. So I'm like, let's team up. You do 30 minutes on the 5 things that they don't know about CPAs and what they should be doing with their finances. And I'm going to teach them 5 things they don't know about marketing. And like you said, marketing seems like a little bit easier of a sell, but if you're doing lawns and you have a lawn business and you have more of a product, it's kind of service/product, right? You pick a home in the neighborhood that like looks pretty darn good, but maybe their yard needs a little work. And then you say, look, we're going to put our sign in your yard. I'm going to do your yard for free for 2 months, which is kind of the time frame you need to do, and that's the advertising you're paying for. And when people drive by that in the neighborhood and they're like, damn, that yard looks pretty good. Oh, wait, who did that yard? So that kind of thing, I mean, it sounds like an outlay of money also because you're doing something for free, but if you're strategic in doing the free things, you're going to get the clients that make the most sense for you, rather than saying someone coming up to you going, I really need your help. I need you to do this for free. And then you're like, okay, I'll help you. But then it doesn't lead anywhere because they don't know anybody. They don't have the right connections. They don't have the right reach that you need. So you have to be strategic in the free stuff that you do, but there's ways you can also limit it. Like I said, doing a yard for a month or 2 months just to make it pretty enough so that when people drive by, they're like, perfect. And then that person is like, wow, you do this really great. Like, what do you charge? Now you're going to, the trial is up. Okay, now I got to pay. Well, what is it? I'll pay, you know, because now they're used to that. So things like that can always be done for all different kinds of industries.
I love it. And there's even deeper strategy than that, where it's like, you know, do it for a big house and a small house, because you don't know if people are going to go to the big house like, oh, I could never afford it, so I won't even call.
Right.
Versus the people that go in the little house, like, no, I want like a legit house. So like, no matter what, you're kind of covering your bases.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always all kinds of strategies you can perform with that. And you can also do giveaways, and you can, like a lot of lawn people, they just kind of go to like homeowners associations or apartment associations, things like that. But then like, what about all these moms groups? These moms don't have time to do the yards, and the husbands are like, yards, I'm busy, I'm working, And so it's like, okay, the yard has to be done. So somebody has to do it. And the moms are usually the ones that are making those kinds of decisions for the home. So that kind of stuff, house cleaners, same kind of thing. Like there's always options for that stuff. And I've actually had realtors come to me, and this is the biggest one that have the biggest problem with my social media, because they're like, well, how could I possibly do 12 months in a day? I don't even know what houses I'm going to sell, in 6 months or 3 months or 3 weeks. And my point with that is that the social media stuff that we do, it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's always evergreen stuff that you can do. And the same thing goes for like teaching. Like there's always something you can teach about yard maintenance. You could do YouTube videos and say, look, these are the types of, this is what crabgrass looks like. Look, this is what St. Augustine grass looks like. And just be teaching that stuff, because that stuff doesn't change. The way that crabgrass looks is always the same. And the way to treat it is always the same. And so you can give that value to someone, especially like on YouTube. Plumbers are my favorite, because if you watch plumbing videos on YouTube, one, they're hilarious because these guys are just so like down home. They're just like no pretentious airs or anything.
Yeah.
And they're also just like, they know their stuff so well. It takes them like 5 minutes to replace a toilet. I'm like, how did you even do that? So those kind of things, are really going to boost what you're doing. And also, just because you're working with a small area too. This is another thing people have a problem with. Oh, I'm just working with a small area. Why would I use YouTube? It's so global. Well, there's actually a company in town that did a blog post just on their website. So it wasn't even YouTube, just put a blog post on their website. They did so well with the keywords and stuff and the content they put together, that Google had started picking it up, and people were asking this question on Google. So then Google was like, oh, here's an answer over here. And people from Canada, the UK, all over the world are looking at this article because they have the same question. The company is here in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, in like, the US. It's like this tiny little company, but they got so much traction out of the article that their local SEO just blew up. And now people are like hiring them all over the place. And they have radio commercials and all this stuff now because they had that global to local effect. So there's all kinds of stuff like that you can do with all these.
Yeah. I love that example because it demonstrates where I think there's an SEO strategy and there's a very intelligent way of going about things, but you can also just as easily give value and do your thing, and the algorithm will pick you up without you having to figure out these other weird words. Like, just do your thing and give value, and it's going to work out, because that's what Google is actually designed to do anyway.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I used to call my social media, and I still sometimes I use it, but algorithm proof. And that's what we do with everything. Like I do SEO, but it's algorithm proof. We're not there to beat the algorithm. It changes every 5 minutes and we don't even know. So we're not going to beat it ever, but we can work outside of it, because like you said, Google is designed originally to build upon what people are looking for. And if you know your client enough to say, my client is going to say, how do I cool my second floor? Well, maybe it's your filter, maybe it's your drain line, and they have all these reasons of what it could be. So you can kind of DIY it first. And then they're like, but if you're still not having luck, you should call us.
Yeah.
That's the answer, is to provide that value, give them that thing, and then say, and if you're not having luck, here's the answer, the ultimate answer. Because, going outside of the algorithm also takes that weight off of the entrepreneur's shoulders by saying, you don't have to learn all this. You have to learn some stuff, and you should be, proficient in what you're doing, but you don't have to bog yourself down with all of this data that is really not necessary for what you're doing specifically.
Yeah. And, even getting back to the example of like making helpful videos, it's like, even if, you listen, it's like, oh, Elizabeth and Andrew said, if I do this, it'll take off, even though we didn't actually say that. It's like,
Right.
it doesn't happen, but what if the YouTube channel takes off? And then all of a sudden that's revenue that's completely aside from your business, that's coming in passively. It's like, there's so many ways that you can continue to monetize that have nothing to do with the actual money coming into that part of the business itself.
True. And same thing with blogging and doing ads, and, Google Ads has been around for a long time, but there's also ways that you can say, well, I'm getting a lot of hits on my site. Maybe it's not actual income, like you said, but maybe your site's just popular. And maybe you can now sell ads on your site to local people who are in the similar, thing. And maybe they could write articles for you, and you can kind of build that. And I believe that you should have multiple streams of income regardless. So that's just another piece. And that's a little more technical, and you might, some people might not be comfortable with doing that, but it's just an option. It's not like all these things are, mandatory. And I feel like some of what I call the gurus, and I put that in quotation marks, they kind of weight you down with do this and do this and do this and do this. And they keep adding more things. And we've talked about a lot of things you can do, but really what people should take away from this conversation is, what were the things that I know that my clients would resonate with? Not with what I'm resonating with. Because me as a consumer, sometimes I'm not my own ideal client. Sometimes I am. And I think a lot of times people serve their own demographic just because it's, it just makes sense. But a lot of times too, they're not their own demographic. And if you can step outside of yourself and say, if I was the consumer, what would I appreciate? Then just do those things. And the things that you don't like about, all this, don't do that. Just don't do it.
Wow. It's kind of funny. I personally feel like you've been giving gold the whole conversation, but this last leg of things is my favorite part, because just in our natural flow of conversation, we're going to all these examples, which again, people can't do all these, and nor should they.
Right.
But they're probably like, even if one or two of these things is kind of like making something click for somebody listening right now, that's where the real power is. So thank you for that. We're almost out of time here, so I want to make sure to ask, like, if people want to learn more about you and get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
I have a website called beyondthecause.co. That's our company. And we have a tool page. So beyondthecause.co/tools. And if you go to that page, it's all the tools I use in my business. And I use like free stuff or really, really cheap stuff, but it's really good stuff because I've vetted all of it. And I use all those pieces in my business. And I also have my social media toolkit on there. So all the tools that I use in a session, you can actually download right on my website. And also you can get some website audit done through my website as well. So you'll see that pop up too. But all of that's beyondthecause.co/tools. And I'd love to have people check out all the stuff I use because it's awesome.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put that link in the show notes. And last question to close things out. What's the number one piece of advice you wish that you can go back in time and give yourself from 10 or 15 years ago?
So I always have the same answer because I have regretted this decision for a long time, but it's a tool for everyone else. So I only recently heard about a book about 3 years ago called Profit First. And if I had had that book in my hands when it was originally published, I would be much richer now, which would be great. But it's not just about that. It's about all the stress that book relieved from me as a business owner. And I think that when it comes to business owning, the two things that bog us down the most and that really just weigh on our minds and stress us out are money and marketing. Those are just our two main things. Like the rest of it takes care of itself, but money and marketing are our two hardest pieces to really wrap our brains around. And I've given you all the marketing tools, so you should be set. But the money part was always really hard for me because I was always taught a traditional money mindset and that you pay your bills first, you pay your people, and then you have what's left over. And this book turns that whole system on its head because it's about cash flow management, It's not about accounting. It's about how you manage the cash that actually comes in. And it's about taking your profit essentially and actually first, which I thought was insane. Like, why would you take money off the top and say, this is profit? You can't really do that, right? That's not what profit is. But really, this book just explains how you can take your money and and change your mindset with money to the point where your business is no longer eating 60, 70, 80% of the cash that comes in, which mine was. Mine's now eating about 20 to 30% of the cash that comes in, and I take home 50% of everything I make.
Nice.
So, and all the taxes are paid also. So it sounds like craziness, and how could I possibly take a 50% paycheck? That's insane. But I did it, and I did it within a few months of reading that book. And if I had had that book 10 years ago, oh my gosh, I would have been, it would have been so great. So definitely get Profit First. It's the best book you'll ever read, except Andrew's book. But it's
of course.
but it just changed my life so much. And I don't really think that about books because I don't read a lot. But that was one I did read, and I'm so glad I did.
Nice. Elizabeth, I never try to project how a conversation's going to go or anything, but I'm so glad we had this talk. I knew it was going to be good, but it went in directions I never really predicted in such a good way. And I really want to thank you for sharing so much insight, so much value, so much gold. I think a lot of people listening out there right now are going to get so much out of it. And I would hope that a lot of them are going to be inspired to take steps that they should have taken years ago, whether it's getting profit first or just implementing the next year of their business. So thank you so much for being here. This was beyond awesome. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's been my absolute pleasure. And this is one of those things that I want people to go and do, is just go out and give value. Everything I've said, I could have gotten paid for it, but I wanted to give it because it's important for me that people understand these things. So I'm just so glad that you asked me. We were able to collaborate and be on this together. And thank you so much.
Thank you again, Elizabeth, for that awesome interview and those awesome insights. And thank you for that link, beyondthecause.co/tools, where listeners can go and check out a lot of free information that's going to help them out in their business. Guys, I really hope you like that one. And of course, stay tuned. We've got a lot more on the way. And, if you haven't done so already, pull out that phone, hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, leave a quick, honest written review. Let me know what you thought about today's episode and the ones before it. Let me know what you'd like to hear moving forward and what kind of guests you might want to have on here. And any other thoughts you might want to share. I'm always happy to hear what they are and always happy to move on the suggestions. But with that said, I'm going to dive on out of here. I'll see you guys next time, which will be sooner rather than later. And I'm looking forward to it. Take care. Thank you for listening to Shatter the Mold at www.shatterthemoldpodcast.com. My name is Andrew S. Kaplan. My name is Andrew S. Kaplan, and it's time to shatter the mold.